6:43. Welcome back to Great Day for this Tuesday. It is a great day because Jackie has returned, and so has Ron, the car guy from Westside Auto Pros. He has all kinds of advice, and today is going to be interesting because a lot of people ask this question, especially this time of year.
You know, I hear this question a lot, and I'm going to preface it by saying, you know, I'm not a financial services guy, and I'm certainly not an accountant. I pay people to do that for me. But we hear the question often, should I buy a car or lease a car? Mm-hmm. And for years, you've probably heard that, you know, you're always better to buy a car instead of a lease a car. And in a lot of cases, that is true. But, you know, there are certain tax benefits to companies or businesses to lease vehicles. That's actually where the leasing started on vehicles. It wasn't for a private individual. It was more for, you know, companies, and there were some tax advantages and stuff like that. And they're not always that great. I mean, we you know, buy, you know, tow trucks and mobile service vans and stuff for Westside Auto Pros, and every time I make a purchase, I go to my accountant. I said, you know, should I buy this or should I lease it? And he'll run the numbers, and he's always come back and said you're better off to buy it, and we'll take the depreciation. But I want to talk a little bit more about the individual person, because the, you know, leases kind of went away during the crash of the economy and the automotive industry, and now they're bouncing back, and so. Basically, when you lease a car, you're renting it for the amount of time you're going to use it, right? Plus paying the interest during that time, and so the biggest benefit of leasing a vehicle is emotional. Emotional. That's your biggest benefit when you're leasing a vehicle, and there's nothing wrong with that because we all want to feel good. Right. But you're feeling good because you're driving a new car all the time. You're feeling good because, you know, you're driving a car that maybe you can't afford to buy, because it certainly is cheaper to lease a car because you're just renting it for the time that you have it. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the biggest benefit, is from an emotional standpoint. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all want to feel good and smile and be happy and stuff. But if you're the type of person that needs a new car or needs to drive a luxury car, because that's where leases are more popular, is on the, you know, the BMWs, the Audis, the Cadillacs, stuff like that. I mean, they're certainly there on other stuff too. But you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But the nuts and bolts of it are, you're then trapped into payments. Right. You know, where if you buy a vehicle and finance it for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, at some point it's paid for, and the car's not wore out, you could still drive it. One of the people that I look at, and you read this and you see it in the articles all the time, you know, Warren Buffett didn't get to where he's at by making, you know, non-sound financial choices. And you know, he still lives in the same house that he bought in the 1960s, and God knows he could afford to buy probably a much nicer house. Yeah. And he afford
to buy Omaha.
Well, yeah, well, he already has bought Omaha, but you know, you look at the vehicles that he drives. You know, he drives an 8 or a 10-year-old, you know, pickup. I mean, there's nothing fancy there, because he's realized that the money that he would be putting into a lease or a payment, you know, can be offset and better used somewhere else. So now, one of the advantages of when you lease a vehicle also is it's no different than when you rent your home. If something major does fail, you know, if the water heater fails in your home or the roof starts to leak, you pick up the phone, you call the landlord, and it's not your problem. Right. And when you lease a vehicle, typically they're new vehicles that you lease, and they're almost always under the manufacturer's warranty blanket, so you're never going to buy a transmission. You may never have to put brakes on it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go out and run the tar out of it and abuse it, because when you go to turn it in, if it's got dents or if it needs tires or you know, has stains in the upholstery and stuff, I mean, you have to pay for that. You've got to take care of the vehicle. Right. But you are going to avoid, you know, the expensive, you know, auto repairs that may come with an older vehicle. You know, if you're already making monthly payments all the time on a leased vehicle.
And some people might be watching and saying, well, if I bought a new car, I wouldn't be having to worry about the transmission or engine or a thing like that either. But you're talking about getting a car that's above your pay grade.
Well, exactly.
Because you would not have that car.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. You wouldn't go out and buy the 7 Series BMW if you had to buy it and pay retail for it. And that's the other thing to keep in mind on a lease is every once in a while I'll hear people, well, I leased it for 3 years and then I bought the lease out, or I bought the car at the end of the lease. You paid way too much for that car, because the lease overall, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and the lease payment when you lease a car is based off the sticker price of the vehicle. So if it's a $40,000 vehicle, the lease is based off a $40,000 vehicle. When you go to buy that vehicle, nobody, or at least in the United States, pays sticker for a vehicle. So you lose that negotiating part up front, the discount, so to speak. And that's one reason that a lot of dealers like to lease vehicles, is they're selling the car for sticker.
And they get to sell it again, and I think they make some money off of financing the car, right? So they get money for leasing it, and then they get money for selling.
When it gets turned back in, yeah, then they can run it through, turn it into a certified pre-owned, and sell it. And that's one thing to keep in mind is depending on where you look for research, between 20 and 25% of the vehicles sold, new vehicles sold right now, are sold on a lease. Well, they're not actually sold because you never own it.
You're leasing it.
Yeah, they're rented out on a lease. But 20 to 25%. So let's say it's the higher amount. It's the 25%. 75% of the vehicles sold are still conventionally bought. So it isn't that 25% of the population knows something that we don't.
Right.
And then a couple other things. If you do lease a car, make sure you get the gap insurance, because if it gets in an accident and gets totaled out, you want to make sure that you're covered for any difference there, because there is a depreciation hit up front.
Right.
And vehicles, they're not like a house where you build equity because they go up in value. I mean, they're a bad gamble. They're always going to go down in value, but at least on buying it, at some point you have some kind of equity type value in there, where on a lease it's not an asset because you never own it.
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's a personal decision. Everybody's got to have a car. Everybody's got to have transportation. So if you want the car that's outside of your pay grade, maybe looking at leasing it, or what happens to those vehicles when the lease is up after 2 or 3 years? They go back and get sold.
They have to get rid of them.
Yeah, they don't throw them away.
Right.
So maybe go buy at a bargain price then.
Right. Buy the off-lease vehicles.
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
get a good deal.
Exactly. They're still relatively new, and they've lowered in price because someone else rented down the price for you. So that's always a good option.
There you go.
Good idea. That's
More
good
than
advice.
just car repair advice.
Just car advice.
Ron the Car Guy.
I wish I'd
car
gotten that advice
in general.
about 20 years ago.
Now, Ron, if people have questions for you in general, how do they get a hold of you?
They can go to askronthecarguy.com. I answer all questions through there, or they can contact me through westsideautopros.com. That's our website.
There you go. Perfect. Good job, man. Interesting
Thank you.
topic. It is 6:52. We'll be right back. You're watching Great Day Live on KCW.